Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Welcome to Parenting in the 21st Century. I'm Zina Shevchik. Today we have with us Roger Dames from AAA Hudson Valley to talk with us about teenagers and driving. Welcome, Roger. Thank you very much for taking the time to come to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Your job title, as you told me, is Traffic Safety Coordinator for Traffic Safety Services at AAA Hudson Valley. Can you tell us exactly what your job entails?
I can do that. What it is AAA has had a big interest in traffic safety for over 100 years. And each AAA has decided that the best thing for them to do would be to start to localize their traffic safety programs. So what happened was each AAA started their own traffic safety department, which would cover anything from preschool, sometimes even mothers clubs, where we may go in with a small robot and talk about traffic safety with the kids as they start to grow. Develops into the teenage problem we have associated with driving, into the middle age, right up into the seniors. And we bring programs in the community. They're all free programs. We bring these programs in the community to give them a better quality of life, and we want them to drive safe.
What do you spend most of your time doing?
Most of my time is spent lecturing those groups that I mentioned, from the preschool toddlers right on up to our seniors in their 90s.
Okay. I became interested in doing this program because it seemed to me that every week on the local news I heard about a serious car accident involving teenage drivers. Now, I have a couple of teenagers in my house, so I would always be very interested in it. Some of the things I learned while researching this program were that traffic crashes are the leading cause of death for teens of driving age. Teenage drivers are involved in more car crashes than any other age group, and that drivers between the ages of 15 and 20 make up 6.5% of the nation's driving population, but are involved in about 14% of all fatal car crashes. I'm hoping you can shed some light on this problem for all the parents who are watching this program and perhaps offer us some possible solutions.
We could do that. Actually, the teens, there's about 225 million drivers on the road in the country, and the teens make up 1/5 of that group, and there's about 680 billion miles traveled in the U.S. annually. Teens make up about 1/5 of that group. The problem is the next line is they're involved in 45% of all fatal alcohol-related crashes. So what started out as a small, minor part of that has developed and mushroomed now into a huge group, where they're involved in 45% of the fatal crashes. And it's usually with alcohol.
It is usually with alcohol.
We can discuss as one of the problems we're having with teen drivers today.
Okay. So what do you think what are the other reasons do you think that there are so many teens involved in accidents other than drug and drinking? Is it their inexperience? Are they not being taught properly? How can we improve or make these statistics not so horrible?
Well, the problem is, it's twofold actually. The problem is inexperience. A driver today, with the amount of cars, the vehicles on the road, the driving conditions, it takes about 5 years to have the experience to really be able to get behind the wheel and be able to think, okay? The problem with teens is, and they're not the only group, but it's a big part of the problem, is that it's multitasking. It's because it's such a big job to be able to pay attention, concentrate on the road. They're not able to do that and multitask and do different things. The other problem is, and it's the biggest problem probably, is risk-taking. And there's a word that we use in our circles. It's called risk, and it's because it encompasses all the driving. People just don't think, depending on what they're doing, there isn't any risk involved. Maybe I can run to the store around the corner. I don't really have to buckle my belt. Maybe I can do this, and it's okay to do that for a second. If we take a look at where most of the younger children are injured in our country today through the use of automobiles, it happens in a parking lot. because the mother may be in a store with 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, children, and I don't have to tell anybody how hectic that can get. And then they have all these packages, all these bags and things, and they always get help. Usually, yeah, I'll help you out to the curb with that. And then they'll say, well, go ahead and get your automobile. I'll stay here with your packages, drive up to the curb, load them in, and then they'll just throw their kids in the car, put them in the car just to get to that curb before they safely belt them. But that's going off on a little bit different end. But what I'm trying to say is that, it's just risk-taking in general. We talk about teens. Maybe I can do this. I don't have to wear my seatbelt. 83% of the adult population buckles up.
Say that again?
83% of the adult population buckles up. But if we look at teens, only 48% buckle up. Because it's that risk factor in there where they think it's just not going to hurt. Maybe I can go a little bit faster. Maybe, this and that. And the risk is the biggest problem.
You threw out an interesting comment right at the beginning of your last bit there, where you said it takes about 5 years for a driver to become experienced. Is that what I heard you say? And is that like, do you have a miles driven kind of correlation to that 5 years, or it's just 5 years generally?
Now we're just going with generally because obviously every teen travels a different ways, different amount of miles. We're just saying 5 years behind the wheel, whether it's short trip, long trip, whatever it may take. It takes about 5 to gain that confidence, that experience that you should have behind the wheel.
And do you think that because, the reasons I assume, I'm just assuming, so you have to tell me whether I'm right or not, is the reason it takes so long these days is because of the congestion on the roads, because of the high speed that's allowed on the highways, because of the kinds of cars we're driving where you really can't hear the road. You don't have a sense of being in any kind of a dangerous vehicle, that there's you feel immune, I assume, invulnerable in the machines that we're driving down the road these days. And those are the things that I think of automatically as being perhaps reasons for more skill being needed in driving these days. Is that?
Well, yeah, I like to describe it in 2 words, actually, vehicle control. It takes that long to be able to control your vehicle. And it works the same way as you would a job. A job, you start at the bottom, you learn what's going on, and gradually you move yourself up. Driving's the same way. It is all those problems, but it goes beyond that. It may go to parking. It's just everything in general that's to do with an automobile, a vehicle. It just takes time to learn.
I'm fascinated by that statistic because that idea that it takes 5 years, because I have never heard that before. My children did take driver's ed courses, and I guess I'm assuming that might be presented to them in the driver's ed, but I have no idea. Do you think that is where they're told that in driver's education, that it's going to take them that long to become an experienced driver? Or because that's a very unusual comment, a very unusual statistic.
Well, now, see, when you're talking about driver's ed, you're talking about a whole new different thing now, because the state is confident with driver's ed, and we won't go into it now, but with graduated licensing, for instance, if you have driver's ed and you have that card, then you're able to get your full license a year earlier than a teen who didn't have it. So, yeah, driver's ed encompasses everything. It's where they go over the laws. It starts with the 5-hour pre-licensing, driver's ed. They go over the laws of the state, laws that you need to know, driving ways. They teach them respect for a machine that can weigh between 3,000, 6,000 pounds at 30 miles an hour that moves 43 feet per second.
Right.
So, it's all control. It's vehicle control. It takes you that long to be able to do that. When you can control your vehicle, then you can control all the other aspects of driving.
My children wanted to take the driver's ed program because it allowed them, as you said, to get a permit a year earlier. Was it a permit or a license a year earlier?
Your full license, your operator's license.
Your full license a year earlier. In the research I did before this program, it suggested that the studies that have been done don't seem to think that driver's education necessarily reduces the number of crashes that teenage drivers are in. So what do you think about driver's ed programs in general in terms of helping teens learn to be good drivers?
It's hard to measure driver's ed because unlike years ago, today driver's ed, for one thing, it's offered in a lot of the schools. Many of the schools it is, but you have to pay for it. A lot of people can't afford it.
Right.
So we're not getting the
Very
people out there. Most of them do it in the summertime now. Like when I was younger, it was part of the curriculum in a school. You did it on a school day. It was there. I think driver's ed's a good start. Some parents are really concerned to the point where they will send their teens to us at AAA and not only go through the 5-hour pre-licensing, which we do and is required, but they'll also send them to our driver improvement classes, which are normally conducted for a 10% insurance discount, taking points off your license. But parents feel that the program is so worthwhile, they'll send their teens down there even with a permit.
Oh, that's good.
So they're
That's good to
getting
know.
kind of like a double dose of reality when it comes to driving.
Right.
They're getting their 5-hour, they're getting driver's ed, and they're also getting that big 6-hour course that the state mandates to be able to reduce your points or to get an insurance discount.
Okay. Now, you were kind enough to bring a brochure which that AAA distributes, and the title is 10 Deadly Teen Driver Mistakes and How to Avoid Them. And I thought you might do us a favor and go over these points with us, because I think this is the most important thing is, and how to avoid them.
And without even looking at it again, we notice what the first two already are. I spoke of risk, which is the most important, and the problem with unbuckled teens in the car, or people in general. But that goes a lot further than that, too. Today, what we're finding out about unbuckled people, but we'll just hang on to that a little bit. But, of course, risk-taking is the number one. Again, automobile crashes are, and I like to use the word crash or collisions. We don't really use the word accidents if we can help it, because we all know that accidents are avoidable, because usually accidents occur because somebody has done something wrong.
Right.
But that's okay. But for my purposes, I try to use collisions or crashes. And then risk is there just for that. And basically, all it is just it's there to let them know that excuse me, everybody's at risk. It doesn't matter if you've been driving for 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, or if you live long enough, 100 years. It doesn't matter. The point that we have to drum across is that risk is always present. It's there. And you have to learn how to manage that risk. So that's the first problem. Second thing, we talk about unbuckled, and again, I told you earlier that we're up in the 48th percentile of teens that don't buckle up. And if you really look at the news, if you really look at the newspapers, you pay attention to the radio, you watch TV, you're going to notice that within a 100-mile radius of here, we've had about 18 to 20 teens that's been ejected out of the automobile. 99.999% of the time, all ejections are unbelted people.
Yeah, that's one I've been watching in the news
We've had the group
the
out
last
at
6
Bolton
months. Landing.
Well, sure, they weren't teens. They were just barely out of their teens. But if you look at it, you had the girls that were text messaging out by Rochester. Mm-hmm. We ejected. We had people ejected on the thruway. They're getting ejected all the time. How do we get that message across to them that they need to buckle up? Like all driving, it starts at home. Right. If the parents don't buckle up, the kids don't buckle up. So you have to educate them. But buckling up is important. And I want to mention while we're talking about buckling up, we're finding out now that the people that aren't buckled up are injuring and killing a lot of people in the car because they're getting thrown against those people and they're doing damage to their heads, their brains, they're slamming into other people. So that's what happens with that.
You're saying even inside the vehicle, being unbuckled poses a danger.
Right, and I'm going to tell you, it may not be a popular decision, but AAA has teamed up with Save Kids in different groups where we're pushing to have a law where everybody has to get buckled in the car. That's it.
Personally,
bottom line.
I approve of that.
Because the other people become projectiles. And a good example was out around Niskayuna, not too long ago, you had a couple people in the car that were in a crash, and you had a child in a car safety seat, and the child's sibling wasn't buckled, got thrown forward, came back, and the elbow hit the child in the head and gave the child a concussion. So that's just an example. So
I
unbuckling is
just want to
important.
throw in here for our audience, because I was aware of this when she died, that Princess Diana, they said that if she had been buckled up, she probably would have lived. So that, I mean, that's just something that everybody, because everybody knows who she is. If she had been buckled up, she probably would have lived even in that horrific crash that occurred. Okay?
And just a side note to that, if you look at that crash real quick, and of course I was a crash management person in the police department, but if you look at that really quick, and you have two people in the front and two people in the back, and you're almost never going to see where the people in the back are going to die and not both people in the front. In that case there, the only one that was buckled was somebody in the passenger seat. They survived the crash, and the other three didn't survive. They weren't buckled up. But normally the people in the front would be killed automatically far before the people in the back ever would. So that's just an example about buckling up. And as we go along, and I always try to make that point to the teens, is they need to buckle up. That's important. Next thing is speed. What can I say about speed? People drive too fast. I don't care if they're driving a day, a year, a month, or 100. It doesn't matter. People drive too fast.
That's largely because the cars can, let me tell you.
Well, that's true.
You don't even feel it now.
Now
So,
you don't. You look out the window and it doesn't look like you're doing much.
You don't
then
hear it.
Your eye glances down, or maybe you see that guy just sitting on the side of the road that's watching you, and you look at your speedometer and you say, oh my, I'm doing 85. I didn't think that was. The average speed on the highway system in the U.S. today, on New York State, in New York State is about 80 miles an hour. Now, I don't know any highway in New York State that has a speed limit of 80 miles an hour. The problem with that is, normally when people exit a highway, they exit at the same speed they're driving. So now you're exiting highways in these deceleration lanes at possibly 70, 80 miles an hour. So that causes a problem.
Well, those ramps are probably made for a lot less. I mean, the length of them and everything is made for a lot less speed.
They are. And of course, they all have suggested posted speeds on them, and they're there for a reason. But teens drive too fast. If you look at teen crashes, teens are involved in the most violent crashes that are in the world. It's just, they're devastating. There are 5 killed here, 4 killed here, 3 killed there, 2 killed there. It's just an amazing. Now, you have to put it in context with the older drivers, of course. Again, a lot of your teens and your younger people that are maybe just out of their teens drive a lot more at night. When you get older, like me, of course, you don't like to drive so much at night. The older you get, the less likely you want to drive at night.
Right.
Most serious crashes occur at night, between possibly around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. But their crashes are very violent. The cars are sheared in half. They're just totally demolished and disintegrated in certain areas. I've seen crashes and pictures where only the motor block was left, and there just wasn't anything left of anything else. So speed is the big factor.
And that's along the lines of parents being the model. If everyone else on the road is driving fast, what are we teaching our teenagers? I know that when we were teaching my children to drive, that was one of the issues. Mom, Dad, the speed limit says 55 or 65, but everybody's going 20 miles an hour faster. So what do you do? Now, I have no idea thinking about this, what the driver's ed people told them in terms of staying with the flow. But it's pretty hard for an inexperienced driver to stay with the flow of an 80 mile an hour traffic flow. So.
Yeah, and you could be the one person picked out of the flow.
Yeah.
That group. So some people try to stay with the flow. We say sometimes, depending on the circumstances, it could be okay, but we always recommend they get out of that, especially if that flow happens to be moving too fast.
Go over to the right and slow down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't sit in on driver's ed lectures and theirs, because we do our own too, not driver's ed, but 5-hour and our different driver improvement classes. But I'm sure driver's ed, the state relies on them enough, and it has a confidence in them to where they're able to get the message across to our teens.
Okay.
But while you mentioned it, maybe we should take a look at, I don't know if this would be the time to
Go
look
right
at
ahead.
the parental responsibilities
Go right
involved,
ahead.
because this is kind of important.
Go right ahead.
The brief history of it is, if you got back when I was younger, and people turned 16, we know what the first thing they wanted. Now you could say, well, what do you want for your birthday? And it was always, I want a
car.
driver's license, I want a car.
Yep.
As time went on, supposedly, and sometimes I find these statistics hard to believe, supposedly the teens, not that far, so long, that much, not so long ago, I'm sorry, they were happy, and again I find this hard to believe, walking, getting a ride, taking a bus, riding their bicycle. Again, I find it hard to believe, but I'll go with that. Then, the problem we have, it brings us up to today and maybe a few years back, the parents now, where they used to try to avoid getting their kids, their children a license too early, now they're pushing them to get it. That's what we're finding out now, because now mom says, you know, if you had a license, you could drive Johnny to the baseball game. I could do something else. So they're kind of pushing them into it. So now the responsibility lies with them. They have to teach them, they have to train them, they have to know what they can do, how to remedy the situation. Big thing is monitor. Parents don't monitor their teens driving. And most parents don't even know there's a form at motor vehicle called an MV1, which gives them the power to pull that license anytime they want.
No, I didn't know that. Say it again.
MV1 at motor vehicle, and all they have to do is sign that and hand in the motor vehicle, and their teen's license is gone until they decide to sign it again and give it back to them, the parents. So that's part of that's the monitoring. And just to give you a quick example, we were approached by a local TV station who wanted us to ask our parents, because we have several thousand people we put through these driving classes each year for driver improvement, who would like to get a small monitor put into their car that's normally expensive, that would monitor teens driving. And over 3,500 people we checked, and not one wanted that free box in their car because they don't want to know, because they don't want to be the one to pull their license.
Oh.
So the responsibility lies with that. There's no saying the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The parents drive responsibly, the teen will. Parents buckle up, the teens will. Parents use consideration with driving, the teens will. Parents don't get involved with road rage, the teens won't. So that's kind of their responsibility and the things that they need to be able to do, and they have to monitor, because one of the things that we do is we offer a parent-teen workshop, which is pre-licensing teens, pre-permitted teens, 15 years old generally, and we bring the parent and we bring the teen in together, and we have a PowerPoint presentation and a few things where we let them know what's at stake.
Well, that's great. I didn't know about that either.
Yeah, we let them know from the car, the money, what it could cost, the lives, at the bottom line, the life, and that's what we try to tell them.
So it's a parent-teen class.
Workshop. Absolutely. And we bring them together, and I discuss things with them. It lasts about an hour or so, and we let them know what's at stake when it comes to driving.
I do know that that's true about parents wanting their kids to drive. Part of it's because kids aren't playing so much in the backyard, that it's a lot more scheduled activities, and mothers in particular are driving their kids back and forth to relatively long distance activities. And you know, I've seen that in my own community, where they want the kids to drive as soon as possible. But go ahead.
The next on the list, of course, would be number 4, excuse me, which is rowdy riders. And again, graduated license, putting a stop to that, is teens in the car. When you have a teen driving, a bunch of teen passengers, there's problems driving. Concentration, distractions, things like that. One extra teen in the car, there's a 39% chance that somebody could get in a crash or get killed. If you have 2 teens, it goes up to 86%. If you have 3 teens, it's mushroomed up to 300%.
So what does the graduated licensing program, it permits?
It doesn't allow teens, in some cases at the beginning, to drive other teens unless they're immediate family members without an adult 21 years of age in the car.
Okay, and so this is the new graduated,
that's part of it.
2003 graduated licensing programs begun in New York State that
tries
limits.
to address that.
Okay, limits the number of other teenagers in the car. All right.
And of course, number 5 is cell phones. I don't need to go into that. Again, we're into multitasking. It's just illegal anyway. Doesn't matter whether you're a teen, adult, or what. Handheld cell phones are illegal. The fines are stiff. At any given time in New York State, there could be 5 million people on cell phones.
And now text messaging.
And text messaging is going with that. And of course, the unfortunate crash out in the Rochester area, they're finding out now the ejections, the young girls getting killed was a result of text messaging. So.
And again, I have to say, as far as parents go, every day when I drive, I see at least, just in a 30-minute drive, I'll see at least 2 adults who are talking on cell phones and driving. So again, it's modeling safe behavior. So,
And the adults don't set a good example, because if they're going to crack down on cell phones, alcohol, they tell you, but yet people do it anyway.
right,
And
you
that's
see it in the
happens.
news. Okay.
CD players, okay, we don't have to go into that. It's trying to change CDs, radios, anything distracts you. It's not good for you. Late night cruising, of course, graduated licensing doesn't allow you to drive alone late at night anymore anyway, unless you're with a responsible person, adult, a parent, something like that. So, caregiver. And of course, number 8 is DUI. I'm sorry, DUI is on this. This is done in Florida. In New York State, we use DWI, but it means the same thing: driving under the influence or driving while intoxicated.
So that idea of them, I'm actually kind of surprised about that. I thought that kids were more responsible drinking these days, but I was surprised when you gave us that statistic at the beginning about how many car crashes or fatal car crashes still involve alcohol with teenage drivers. That's a surprise to me. So I'm glad we're talking about that.
Yeah, 36% of teen crashes in general are alcohol related, and 45% of the fatalities.
Yeah.
So that number jumps quite a bit. Peer pressure, we all know what that is. We're all young once. Go ahead, go a little bit faster, go quicker, don't wimp out. They have all kinds of comments. Peer pressure is what it is. You have to be able to teach your teen to drive without that pressure. And of course, again, all these things are addressed in graduated licensing.
So
And of course,
parents have to be able to be louder than the peers. They have
Yeah.
to be consistent and say it all the time, right? I mean, better safe than sorry over and over again.
yeah, otherwise, parents don't expect to bury their children. They expect them to bury them someday.
Right.
So that's what happens. It's monitoring. If you don't do it, there's a chance your teen might not be around as you grow up, or get older. And of course, overconfidence. This is one area where teens and our older drivers, they have something in common, and that is overconfidence. If you ask a teen what they know about driving, they'll tell you everything, as well as a senior. They'll tell you everything. So, I guess it's what they get. You get what you get. But they get overconfident, and that falls in line with risk. Risk taking. You can get overconfident. You don't think you're going to get hurt. And those are the basic things, that we look at as the 10 deadliest teen driver mistakes.
Okay. So in the end, it's the parents who make a difference.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Parents have to monitor their teens driving, and they have to be prepared to hang that MV1 over their head if they're under the age of 18, and they have to be prepared to use it.
Right.
And they have to take their license privileges away.
Right. I would like to give you the opportunity to tell us the website address of your organization, where people can find out more information, as well as the phone number of your organization. So if anybody wants more information about what we've talked about today, they can contact you. And we are going to, as well, put up some website addresses on our tape at the end, so that people can get onto the internet and learn more as well. So do you want to give us your phone number? And
Sure. They can call, of course, the 518 area code, 426-1000, and my extension is 2311. That'll put you directly into my extension. Very busy. There's a good chance I may not answer the phone. However, every time anybody that leaves a message, I always get back to them. And they can go on the website, AAA.com, and then click on the link for Hudson Valley, AAA Hudson Valley, and they can get a listing of all our traffic safety programs, Speakers Bureau, speak to people, whatever they need. Everything we carry from, again, our robot, Otto the Auto, who lectures the small children on traffic safety, right on up to what I do, traveling around to schools, organizations, senior groups, and there's never a charge for that.
all free.
We sell safety, but it's the free safety.
Right,
It's
exactly.
important to us.
That's right. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
today, Roger. Thank you very much for being with us today for Parenting in the 21st Century.